It's here. ChatGPT Agent finally hit my desktop. I gotta try this thing. But what? Something that, everyday people do would be great. We've seen a lot of tests by now. We've seen people planning trips to Japan. We've seen people planning a wedding trip. And we've seen video games being played. And we've seen chess games being gamed. And these are all really great applications. But I kind of want to try something that I actually need. I kind of want to try something I actually do in my life. I want this thing to be useful to me right now. But that's the question. Is there a use for an agent right now as it stands? I'm not going to Japan. I'm not planning a Hawaiian vacation. And I don't have any online games that I want to hack. So what can this thing do for me? Agent number 2. That was a success. I know, it's almost dinner time. And, sometimes I don't really plan ahead all that well. I don't feel like stopping at the grocery store. Can ChatGPT Agent do my grocery shopping for me? Now that I could use. All right. Agent mode, 40 left. I'm so excited. I have not tried this thing out yet. I am curious if you can pull the ingredients from these recipe files I'm about to give you, and can you order groceries for me? Maybe Instacart, but if you have a better place, I'm game. So the way that these agents work, they spin up their own virtual computer inside of your chat session. It's got access to a browser and to its own computer, so it can run little programs. So you can see here, it is going through my recipe files and creating a list of ingredients. All right, so it's got my list of ingredients. Everything looks good and asks me a couple of questions about preferences. All right, so now it's got Instacart opened up, but of course it doesn't have any of my credentials. And this is important. We don't want it to have our credentials. It doesn't want to have our credentials. It will need us to take control at times and log into accounts and sometimes enter credit card information. So that's good. And I was kind of curious to see how that was going to work and how it was going to navigate. So it's got Instacart up and running. And at this point, it asked me to log in, which I did. And I noticed I had a couple of items left over in my cart and I needed to remove them. But something on the Instacart browser kept locking up. And I, in fact, got to a point where the browser was just spinning. It didn't record any of my interactions with that browser, which I think is good because it's not training on any of my login data. But I did leave it in a state where it was kind of unresponsive, and I was curious what would happen when it took control again. So it's verifying. So this is the state. I couldn't get rid of this continue shopping screen. And I thought, great, this is your browser, you deal with it. And it started, trying to search and trying to click all the buttons. And it did have a couple times where it basically said, the page is loading swirlies with empties. But it did manage to get it out of that state that I couldn't. So that was good. And then it kept clicking around. And honestly, I think it was going so fast that the browser couldn't respond. So it kept kind of getting ahead of itself. And I was wondering, is it going to start clicking on stuff and, random things are occurring? But it did verify at every step along the way that it clicked on the right thing, that the right response had happened. I even a couple of times saw it go, oh, it looks like I accidentally clicked on something. I'll go back and make sure that I got that right. I appreciated the fact that as it was going, it was showing its thought process as it went along the way. I'm now going to search for granulated sugar. I am in a waiting state because the browser is slow. The user only needs this amount. This product has this amount, so that's perfect, and it's the lowest price point. All right, so there is a menu option up here. You can take a look at the activity as it's going on. You can also take over the browser, and I think while it's working, there might be a stop button in here as well. So if you ever feel like, whoa, it's doing something that you're just a little bit nervous about, you can always come up here and just either take over or just stop it and say, well, this is too much. But this activity, it will show you the all the thought process it's going through. So one of the things I did appreciate in its thought process, because I needed some noodles, it looked and saw various noodle options with different flavors and quality and quantity of packages. For the recipe, plain noodles are needed, so I'm considering buying the cheap brand and discarding the seasoning. That's brilliant because that's what all of us would do, right? If we needed just some inexpensive noodles, we'd buy the cheap ones and not care that it's a flavored product. I thought that was just a little bit of cooking genius. So at one point, I did interrupt the process just to see what would happen and said, "Oh, while you're shopping for eggs, I prefer pasture raised eggs. Since they're, $1,000 a dozen, I may as well get the good ones." So it went and searched, looked for some eggs to accommodate my request. And then it kept shopping, added the rest of the stuff to the cart, found everything it needed, currently scrolling through the cart to check to make sure that all of the required items are in there. I do like that it sort of double checked. It identified the extra item, the eggs. It was actually pretty fun to watch, really. All right, so now it is getting to the checkout point. So then it started to schedule the delivery. It sort of realized, oh, I don't necessarily want to schedule a time because I don't know what the user is looking for. But I think it accidentally did default to a delivery option that may or may not work for me. It is important to note that because I already had an Instacart account, I do have saved credit card data in here, which is fine. It can't access that, but it could theoretically just order everything for me without me double checking to make sure it had everything I needed or didn't have stuff I didn't want. So at this point, I definitely wanted to take over the browser. Important to note, the user has taken control and I can't see the changes they made. So that's good to know. It's not recording anything that you do. It's not recording any of the data that you type in, like login information. So if you're enjoying, real quick, maybe think about a like and a subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. We've gotten a lot of new subscribers recently, and I really do appreciate it. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button and see what else is coming in the future. All right, so at this point, the cart was fully loaded and ready for me to log in. I went in and tried to log in and accidentally hit I think it was a Venmo button, and a pop-up occurred, took over the screen, and I couldn't get out of it. It was a full screen pop-up. There was no exit, there was no back button. I tried to hit the hotkeys for the browser to go back, and none of those worked. So at that point, I had to go back in and say, hey, I accidentally hit a button. Can you go close this window for me? And it went in and it actually did the same thing. It said, there's no button to close this. Let me try the hotkeys. Well, the hotkeys don't work. Somehow through its magic, it did manage to close that window and give me back control. So there were a couple of bugs in the browser, but it's pretty new, so that is to be expected. However, I went in and edited the cart because it had a couple things I didn't need. I actually have flour and salt, and so I took a couple things out. And I was sort of getting ready to prepare it to hand back to the agent to complete the order. But there was another pop-up window, and I X'd out of that, and for some reason, it completed the purchase. It acted like me closing the pop-up was also hitting purchase, checkout. That was definitely not what I expected. So again, just a little bit buggy. It ended up being fine because I was ready to hand control back to the agent, but just something to be aware of that it's early days and it's probably got a few bugs and there might be some unexpected behavior. So just be a little bit cautious. If you have 2 first-class plane tickets in there, you might want to be real careful. All right, but overall, super impressed. So I think I need to give the agent something else to do. It's dinner time. I do have groceries coming, but I'm not going to cook all that stuff tonight. I'm hungry now. So, DoorDash, anyone? All right, so next I said, can you go to DoorDash and order some spicy chicken sandwiches? We need 2 sliders with no toppings. One is hot, one is medium. Order some fries. I need another slider, that's just medium with all the toppings. Can you go do that? So it went, opened up DoorDash and said, yep, I can do that, but I need you to log in. Once I logged in, it is searching for my restaurant and it's going to start ordering. I was curious to see how well it would manage this because I find DoorDash's system a little bit difficult to use sometimes and a little bit confusing. And it's got pop-ups inside of the window with a bunch of check boxes and things that I knew the agent would have to manage. And you can even see it's kind of clicking around quickly before the browser has finished rendering. So it keeps clicking the wrong thing and it each time verifies, oh, I think I hit the wrong thing. Let me go back. Let me find that again. And then it just starts ordering. And this part I was honestly the most impressed with because it knew it had to scroll down. It found all the options for the toppings and the sauce and everything that I had requested. Selecting modifications for the second slider. So it's going and customizing all the toppings for the second slider, and it's actually clicking so quickly that it's kind of like checking on and off before the browser can kind of catch up. But it did double check each time to make sure in the end all of the correct check boxes were checked. So the sandwich actually ended up with everything that I requested. I was pretty impressed with that. So then it starts working on the second slider. And this one, I had to interrupt it and say, wait, I didn't want fries with the second slider. It handled that no problem at all. So once it's done ordering, it's going to go up to the cart and double check that everything is correct and continues on to the checkout. And it summarizes everything and everything is ready for the place order. So once again, I went in and made sure everything was right, bumped up the tip and told it to go for it. And then everything was done and dinner is on its way. So that worked really well. I have to say, I was very impressed with the DoorDash interaction because that website has so many pop-ups and checkboxes and radio buttons and menu items. I was not sure how the interaction was going to go, but that one actually worked really well. It went through and checked all the checkboxes. It went through accidentally checking them multiple times, but always double checked to make sure that it had the correct thing in the end. So I was really impressed with that. So in this case, really well done, and I didn't run into any browser issues at all. So I could definitely see uses for this in the future. I could see having a preset, here's my Target grocery list, here's my Safeway grocery list. Just go order from that. If I had a file it could read from, I could be creating a grocery list through the week and just hand it the file and say, could you put all these groceries in the cart for me? At a minimum, if I can go through and kind of edit it and maybe add some last minute things, that would still save a ton of time because if you've ever used Instacart, you know it's just really tedious and time consuming. So if I had something that could kind of pre-populate it, that would save me a ton of time. This is a use for an agent I could definitely imagine. The other thing I could imagine doing is having a task set up in ChatGPT. If you had a standing lunch order, if you know every Friday you're going to order lunch from somewhere, you can just tell it, hey, order my favorite salad from this place every Friday at 11:30, and you just have lunch coming to you. That's definitely something, a real world use case and available now. I mean, a lot of these tools, I kind of say, once it gets a little bit better, I think I could see where this is going. Well, this I could actually imagine using right now. So one other thing to note, Plus users get 40 agent requests a month. I went in and did my ordering, as you saw. I came back in this morning to the agent system and noticed I only have 24 requests left. So in my head, I used 2 requests because I ordered from Instacart and I ordered from DoorDash. But obviously, each unit of work is more than 1 request because I am interacting with the agent multiple times in each session. So that's just something to be aware of. You might be using more requests than you're sort of thinking. Just keep an eye on that agent usage. Overall, definitely worth it though. So hopefully your agent has also hit your account. If not, it should be soon. Go out and play and just see what this thing can do. I am going to be very curious to see what people are going to be doing with it in the upcoming weeks. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.